Hello, everyone. Welcome to Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. In today's lesson, I will talk about African traditional religion, that is ATR, and development. I'm Robert Mensah. In this presentation, I will surely talk about African traditional religion, its meaning, its lived nature, and its vital role in development. It is important for us to first of all understand the term African traditional religion. The concept is very complex to define because it is multifaceted in nature and socially constructed. But for academic reason, this lesson identifies African traditional religion as the religious ideas, beliefs, and practices of indigenous peoples south of the Sahara. What this means is that in African thought, the spiritual and the material realms are interdependent, suggesting to us that African traditional religion unites the visible and invisible worlds, including life, nature, and the divine, are, so to say, part of one harmonious system. So let's observe this diagram. A closer observation of this diagram reveals that it is a visual representation of what I just discussed with you about the meaning of African traditional religion, which unites the invisible and the visible worlds into a harmonious system. And as you can see, it is a three-level diagram with its interconnecting arrows. And this diagram largely highlights the dynamic relationship between morality, ritual, and belief. And this demonstrates that African traditional religion is not an abstract system of doctrines, but a lived and embodied spirituality. For example, in many African traditional settings, every significant action, whether farming, seeking employment, applying for school admission, embarking on a journey, or undertaking any major decision, begins with spiritual consultation. This practice stems from the belief that the universe is governed by these spiritual entities. So these entities are the governors of the universe. They are the masters of the universe. They are the gatekeepers of the universe. And so whatever decision you take as individual here on earth, you need to consult them. You need their permission. You need their guidance. You need their directives. And so you need them in your daily life activities. And how do you reach these elements? You do that through certain ritual practices, which appear in the form of prayer, in African setting, libation, sacrifice, and that of divination. And so these ritual practices are largely part and parcel of the life of every African. Therefore, making the religion a lived spirituality, something that is practiced daily in the life of African traditional practitioner or African traditional worshipper, because whatever decision he takes, he needs to consult this being, whether even walking to the farm, whether even eating, sleeping, he needs to consult, making religion a lived, a practiced, and a living religion in Africa. Having explained the term ATR, it is equally important to understand the term development in the context of African traditional religion. Development, according to many scholars, including Ewe is a holistic pursuit of human well-being, both spiritual and material. In African thought, development means you need to have good relationship with the divine and have material resources. That is what we mean by meaningful development. But this idea largely contrasts with economic development models that neglect culture and ecology. Frankly speaking, African traditional religion promotes ecological balance, communal integrity, and human flourishing. What this means is that in African traditional religion, development is not just about wealth, it's about harmony with the environment, others, and the divine. Simply put, you need to have good relationship, that is vertical relationship with the divine, and horizontal relationship with your fellow human beings, and having good relationship with the environment. This is what it means to call meaningful development in African worldview. So if that is the case, then the question that comes to mind is, can ATL serve as a self-reliant material for development in Africa? Studies provide that ATL provides beliefs, rituals, institutions, and values that shape moral and social progress. According to Amega Etigo, true development is self-reliant and contextually grounded in indigenous knowledge. This is why external aid must align with local priorities to be sustainable. This simply means that African development must grow from within by drawing strength from its own religious and cultural foundations, which are beliefs, rituals, institutions, and values that shape moral and social progress. So, how does ATL promote sustainable development? One is that it enhances environmental stewardship through the observation or the respect for sacred groups, totems, and taboos. ATR promotes hard work and resilience, and we see this manifesting in certain traditional sacrifice and libation that motivate dedication. ATR also enhances peace building in the sense that there are certain traditional rituals that promote reconciliation and unity. Again, ATR serve as a gatekeeper of moral order in Africa because it provides elders, taboos, and customs that help sustain harmony. And it also, of course, help in providing spiritual healing in a situation where orthodox medicine are failing the community members. Faith healers offer alternative healthcare to members in the African community. Let's observe this picture or photo. It's a reflection of funeral events or death ritual in Africa, largely because funerals are religious duties, a rite of passage that normally enhance harmony between the living and the dead. But they don't end there. These rituals have sustainability and principles that they normally fulfill. One is economic sustainability principles, in the sense that death rituals in Africa have become entrepreneurial ventures, stimulating local economies through casket making, catering, rentals, and entertainment. When it comes to social sustainability, death rituals promote cultural identity. It promotes cultural education. Death rituals promote reconciliation, cohesion, and enhance social networking. In line with environmental sustainability, whenever there is funeral events, you realize that community members clean the environment. They make sure that the environment is clean. They make sure that all roads leading to the community that have developed potholes are filled or leveled. They make sure that all dilapidated infrastructure in the community are renovated. They make sure that all river bodies are clean. And they make sure that they treat the environment with respect. So as you can see the environment, you see that this is a clear representation. You look at how the environment looks so beautiful. It's a clear representation or reflection of how death ritual promotes environmental sustainability. Another dimension that we discussed in the test was health issues in African traditional setting. In African traditional settings, in a situation where people go to hospital for medical care and orthodox medication appears ineffective, faith healers serve as alternative solution or alternative bodies that provide healthcare to people in African communities. So as you can see, the examples given show that ATR is enduring religion and it is relevant in African setting because it is shaping values, providing health and peace across African societies. So far, our discussion points to some indigenous models of sustainability. One is that African traditional practices such as observing sacred days and maintaining the sanctity of totems offer valuable community-based models for environmental sustainability. Two, they demonstrate that spirituality and ecology are interdependent. Lastly, but not least, these practices reveal how faith and ecology work together to protect the earth and sustain life. As we prepare to bring our lesson to a close, let's look at key takeaways or lessons learned so far. 1. ATR is a lived culture that unites the sacred and the social. It fosters human dignity, identity, and environmental care. 3. ATR has some ethical and spiritual values that provide a strong foundation for sustainable development. Last but not least, African traditional religion is not a relic. It is a living resource for Africa's moral and developmental renewal. In this part of our discussion, you have two things to consider: reflective questions and assignment. Reflective questions. What if society lacked religious leaders or moral guidance? How would communities maintain harmony or hope? Assignments that you must work on. In what four ways can African traditional values and spirituality be authentically integrated into modern sustainable development strategies? For any clarification, contact me at mensarobert421@gmail.com. Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Kumasi, Ghana. Thank you for joining today's session. Please contact and follow us. Note that this material is licensed by the Creative Commons license. You are free to share and adapt. Our project partners, our logo.